Serge, we are ready for you when you are ready to give the welcome.
Can you hear me? Yes? Ok, bienvenue, bonjour, bonsoir, buenas tardes, buenos días, bienvenue à tous. So the session, we will have simultaneous translation for the session. If you want to go to your preferred language, to access your preferred language, you just have to go at the bottom right of your screen. You will find a globe, it says interpretation, and then you click on this, and you will have the choice between English, French, and Spanish. Vamos a tener traducción simultánea para el evento. Si quieren acceder a su idioma preferido, vamos a tener inglés, francés y español. Tienen que ir abajo de la pantalla, en la parte derecha, ahí dice interpretación, hay un pequeño globo, y clica en el globo y podrán tener interpretación en el idioma que prefiere. Donc, bienvenue donc à cette session sur le Fonds international d'investissement municipal. Mon nom est Serge Alou, donc je travaille à CGLU, au secrétariat mondial à Barcelone. Je voudrais juste vous dire quelques mots, je vais parler en français, donc, vous dire quelques mots sur ce fonds, quelques mots d'introduction à cette session. Donc ce fonds, ce Fonds international d'investissement municipal, c'est une initiative conjointe entre CGLU et UNCDF, le Fonds d'équipement des Nations Unies, en étroite collaboration avec le FMDV. Ce fonds a pour principal objectif d'aider les villes à accéder au marché financier public et privé, pour financer des projets d'investissement que ces villes souhaitent engager au bénéfice de leur population. Tout cela dans le cadre de l'ensemble des agendas qui gouvernent le monde aujourd'hui, l'agenda 2030, l'accord de Paris et un ensemble d'autres agendas mondiaux. Ce fonds, donc, est principalement destiné aux pays qui ne font pas partie de l'OCDE, donc aux pays en développement ou aux pays émergents. Il a notamment vocation à accompagner des villes intermédiaires, pas forcément des grandes villes, des villes capitales qui, elles, peuvent, en règle générale, avoir accès plus facilement au marché financier. Donc, il a vocation à accompagner plutôt des villes moyennes, des villes intermédiaires, sur des projets dont la taille, dont le montant ne dépasse pas 25 millions de dollars. Donc, on est sur des projets de taille modeste, mais importante pour ces villes. Donc, c'est une initiative qu'a prise CGLU. Je voudrais simplement mentionner que le réseau CGLU a aussi d'autres initiatives en ce sens, et je voudrais notamment mentionner l'initiative prise par nos amis de la section Afrique de CGLU, qui sont eux aussi en train de mettre en place un fonds, l'Agence Afrique territoriale, qui fonctionne selon des modalités un peu différentes pour faciliter l'accès des villes africaines au marché financier. Ce fonds, la décision de sa création a été prise par le bureau exécutif. Donc, elle a été approuvée par le bureau exécutif de CGLU en 2018 à Madrid. En 2019, à notre congrès mondial de Durban, nous avons annoncé que Meridiam, un gestionnaire d'actifs privé, avait été sélectionné pour capitaliser ce fonds et mobiliser les financements que nous entendons mobiliser en appui aux villes. Parallèlement donc, à ce processus de sélection de Meridiam, au niveau de CGLU, nous avons lancé un appel à initiative dans le réseau CGLU pour identifier un certain nombre de villes qui souhaiteraient bénéficier du fonds. Et donc, nous avons sur ces bases pu sélectionner une dizaine de villes avec lesquelles nous travaillons aujourd'hui de façon prioritaire. Ce fonds, c'est un élément de la stratégie de CGLU sur les finances locales. Donc, la stratégie est plus large que la mise en œuvre de ce fonds. Et cette stratégie comprend d'autres volets, notamment un travail de plaidoyer que nous engageons dans le cadre de ce que nous appelons la coalition de Malaga pour les finances municipales, un travail de plaidoyer sur la scène internationale pour, je dirais, faire en sorte que les villes aient une plus grande autonomie financière, pour faire en sorte aussi que les villes puissent avoir accès à des ressources sur les marchés de capitaux. Donc, il y a tout un travail de plaidoyer que nous réalisons au sein de CGLU dans le cadre de notre stratégie. Et puis, il y a aussi un travail d'échange d'expériences entre les villes, donc, où on essaie de faire en sorte que les villes échangent sur leurs expériences innovantes, sur leur façon de faire sur ce sujet des finances locales. Pour en revenir donc à notre session d'aujourd'hui, et j'achèverai très vite, l'idée c'est de faire le point sur où nous en sommes, hein, donc 2 ans après la décision de création de ce fonds, où nous en sommes de la capitalisation du fonds, où nous en sommes aussi de l'assistance technique qui a été proposée à un certain nombre de villes pour les aider à structurer leurs projets et pouvoir les présenter au financement du fonds. Donc l'idée, c'est de faire le point sur l'état d'avancement de ce fonds international d'investissement municipal. La session se déroulera en 2 temps principaux. Un premier temps où nous entendrons les collègues de UNCDF, donc du FENU, qui nous diront donc où on en est précisément de la mise en œuvre de ce fonds, où on en est du mécanisme d'assistance technique qui a été mis en place. Donc, ils nous feront un point sur l'état d'avancement et les derniers développements du dispositif que nous avons mis en place. Et puis, nous avons sollicité des représentants de 2 agences bilatérales de coopération, l'USAID d'une part et l'Agence française de développement d'autre part, pour nous dire aussi quel intérêt elles voient dans ce fonds et la façon dont elles pourraient collaborer avec CGLU, UNCDF et le FMDV dans sa mise en œuvre. Donc ça, ce sera un premier temps de débat qui sera animé par Mathilde. Et puis un second temps de débat où là, nous avons souhaité donner la parole aux maires de 3 villes que nous avons commencé d'accompagner pour pouvoir structurer leur projet. Donc, Monsieur Ossé Assibé-Antoui, maire de Koumassi, que je vois en ligne. Bonjour, Monsieur le maire. Monsieur Mohamed Sefiani, maire de Chefchaouen au Maroc. Et enfin, Madame Rodika Rusu, je ne sais pas si elle est connectée, qui est donc maire de Telita en Moldavie. Donc voilà comment ça va se passer. Donc on aura quelques présentations. Au terme de chaque moment du débat, nous aurons, nous l'espérons, si les orateurs respectent le temps de parole qui leur a été imparti, nous aurons une quinzaine de minutes de débat avec les participants à la réunion qui pourront poser leurs questions. Il y a 2 façons de poser des questions. Soit les poser dans le chat, donc dans le fil de discussion que vous avez à la droite de votre écran. Donc, vous pouvez poser des questions ici et ces questions seront renvoyées aux orateurs pour tenter d'y apporter des réponses. Soit, au moment du débat, vous pouvez aussi, en cliquant sur la petite icône participant, vous pouvez aussi lever la main virtuellement pour demander la parole et prendre donc la parole dans le débat. Au terme de ces 2 moments de discussion, le second moment sera animé par notre collègue Émilie Mayara, qui est directrice des programmes au FMDV. Donc, au terme de ces 2 moments de discussion, nous donnerons la parole à David Jackson, donc le directeur du financement du développement local au FNU, à UNCDF, et puis à Jean-François Abault, le directeur exécutif du FNDV, pour nous faire part de leurs remarques conclusives sur cette session et puis tracer peut-être quelques perspectives pour l'avenir. Et puis enfin, je demanderai à Emilia, notre secrétaire générale, de bien vouloir reprendre, conclure, nous dire ce qu'elle a tiré des débats de cette session et puis de bien vouloir aussi tracer des perspectives, nous dire l'importance de cette initiative pour CGLU. Emilia, je ne sais pas si tu veux dire un tout petit mot d'introduction, simplement pour souhaiter la bienvenue aux participants. Tu auras l'occasion de t'exprimer à la fin sur les contenus, mais simplement pour souhaiter la bienvenue aux participants à notre session.
Yes, thank you very much, Serge. I would just like to say that this session takes place within the framework of our World Council. Our World Council is the highest policy-making body of our organization. Throughout the week, we will have over 700 participants, and tomorrow and Friday, we will have around 300 elected officials and local and regional governments representatives talking about our work program. So we thought explaining where we are with this fund, exchanging ideas on how relevant it's going to be as we look to the future role of local governments in the recovery in the COVID world will be very important. So more thoughts about that later on, and looking forward to your briefing on where we are and some thoughts of how important these topics are going to be. Thank you, Serge. Thank you, team. Mathilde.
Serge, you're on mute, but I guess I can start. So my name is Mathilde Pénard. I'm a local finance officer at UCLG World Secretariat. And I will have a pleasure to moderate this first panel discussion, which, as said by Serge, will be divided into two parts. So the first part will be introduced by Jaffer Machano from the UN Capital Development Fund. He will provide us with an overview of where we are with the setting up of the International Municipal Investment Fund in its two main components. So the technical assistance facility on the one hand, and the Municipal Investment Fund itself on the other hand. And then in the second part, we will hear from reactions from key partners, bilateral donors, who, although they have not been directly involved in the process, in the development of the fund itself, will provide their views. And I think it will be interesting to hear from them also on the future development of the IMIF. And as said by Serge, we will also have 10 to 15 minutes Q&A after these three presentations. So please do share your comments, your questions in the chat box, or raise your virtual hand, which appears below the list of participants. So I will start with you, Jaffer. You're in charge of following up the development of the International Municipal Investment Fund on UNCDF side. So as I said, you will explain a bit the latest developments of the fund in its two main components. Just to remind all the participants, so the IMIF has two components, the technical assistance facility, which is operated by UNCDF with the support of UCLG and FMDV. And also the Municipal Investment Fund itself, whose management has been entrusted to an independent asset manager, Meridiam. And Meridiam was officially introduced in our UCLG World Congress last year. So Jaffer, you have 7 minutes. I think you have a presentation. Just could you tell us a bit what has been the main progress made in the technical assistance facility and in the investment process itself? Over to you. You have 7 minutes.
Thank you, Mathilde. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. The International Municipal Investment Fund and its technical assistance facility is currently up and running, and it's in, I will say, a pilot phase. The fund itself, it's in the capital raising form, which I'll talk a bit more about it, but a little bit of a background. The structure of the whole arrangement is as this slide is describing. UCLG is a partner into this coalition. Malaga Coalition has its members, which is cities all over the world. And the fund is designed for them. This is the fund that will finance bottoms up based on the needs of the cities in light of the international agreements, the UN Development Goals and Paris Agreement, as such has said. And FMDV is a key partner into the technical input of how this fund works. We have selected Meridiam. Meridiam is in the process of funding this fund. The fund is looking to raise 350 million euros to start. It will grow based on need, which we know it's a big need, but it will grow based on that need. And us from the UNCDF, we, together with the partners, have designed a technical assistance facility because we know a lot of cities' biggest problem is projects are there, but the ability to start a project from a concept note and having a council approve it to be a project ready for investment, a lot of them need help. So the uniqueness of this fund is that two are linked. So once you start from the concept note and get access to technical assistance, then the support goes all the way to the investment with Meridiam. I will talk more about that, but maybe we go a slide down. Next slide. We've talked about this due to time. Next slide. This is when we were launching it in Durban and the objectives of the fund, which Saj has already looked into that. Next slide. Also, next slide. So this is important because the geography, of course, we are starting small and will grow, but we have not limited the fund because we need the diversification of the fund for investors who are putting their money in, because at the end of the day, it's an investment fund. But we also know a lot of cities in the developing countries, whether they're in Africa, Latin America, or Southeast Asia, or Europe, do need investment capital. So it's a pretty wide geography in terms of the growth opportunity. Next slide, please. We have talked about the strategic focus. We are looking at the fund as an innovation because of it's the beginning of a global level cities-based fund that is both technical assistance and investment. But the biggest aim is to support local markets within different countries to understand how to invest in municipalities. So the fund will not invest on its own. It will always invest with local investors, whether they're banks or pension funds or other investors, which we are looking to grow the municipal market within the developing countries. Next slide. I want to focus on this part a little bit because it's important to understand. Now we are heavily on the tier 1 level, which is the technical assistance fund. We are really thankful to the cities that have agreed to become a pilot, and we are working with them right now. You will hear from them in the next phase, from Chefchaouen, and Kumasi and Telita and a few others. And COVID, I have to say, have been quite a restriction and a slowdown, because otherwise our teams of technical experts and financial investment officers would have been on the ground working with these cities, but now we have to do our due diligence remotely. Even with that, it's going, and we are expecting to be done towards the end of this year and to be ready for investment next year. On the tier 2, the fund manager is in the process of funding the fund right now. There's investors who are coming in. Quite a few of them have done due diligence both on us and on the investors, and therefore we are now thinking and know that even though there's been a COVID delay, the fund will be up and running next quarter, meaning January, February, to be ready for investment. Next, please. This is pictorially, this is how the fund works with a technical assistant and the fund itself. It's a blended model because technical assistance is funded by donors and grants. So when we apply support to municipality, that support is not part of the loan. That support is a grant. But that support is only to make the project ready for investment and then to be able to absorb the investment capital that will come in from the fund. Next, please. As Serge has said, the fund manager has already been selected. The fund is going to start at 350 million euros. It's going to be incorporated in Paris, but it will work on the regions that I showed earlier. It will be looking at bottoms up. This is really the fund for the cities. The cities are the ones who will bring a project. Of course, there's a selection process, which I'll talk about it a little bit. And we are expecting the fund to be ready within end of this year and to start investing next year, January, February. Next, please. This is the selection process. And the pilot has been working well. We are really appreciating for the cities who have agreed to be pilot. We are working very closely in a committee with UCLG and FMDV. And you will hear later on from Italy, which is joining, and we are linking to the TAP through this process, the TAP investment pipeline. And therefore, we are looking at next year, once the fund is up and running and we are doing a second call, this selection process to be on an online basis and can be viewed by both cities and investors, and to be transparently looking at how the investments are being done. Next. This is the investment process overall between the IMF-TAF selection and the Meridiam investment process. We can talk about this, I think, a bit more. We will do more of these calls, especially next year when the investment is up and running. But this is how, so far at the pilot basis, where we are working. For the pilot cities, we have already passed the selection phase, the first box. We are in the second box of the project preparation. So far from our side, we are going well. We will of course hear from the mayors later on. Next. Thank you. I would like to stop here in the interest of time.
Perfect. You've been mindful of the time. So thank you, Jaffer, for your presentation. Before I move on to our next speaker, I would like just to ask you a quick question on the timeline. You said that that the projects that are being prepared as part of the technical assistance facility of the different pilot cities will be probably ready to be presented to Meridiam by the second semester of 2021. Is that correct?
The first semester.
First semester.
Looking, yes. So we are looking between end of January and February to be ready. And from the city's perspective, I have to say the process has been working well. The technical teams have been working with us on the preparation. And we are at a stage that we are comfortable on where we are at.
Okay, thank you, Jaffer. And if participants have more detailed questions to ask, please write it down in the chat box, and we will come back to this later. So I just move on to the second part of this panel discussion. We would like to hear now the perspective, the external point of view of two bilateral donors. I would like to ask you both, Frédéric Audras from the French Development Agency and Kevin Nelson from the US Agency for International Development, the same questions, 3 questions actually. The first one is based on what you've heard in the presentation made by Jaffer. Do you think the IMF, the International Municipal Investment Fund, is fit for purpose to facilitate cities' access to external financing, especially in the current global context where we see that there is a huge need for investments in cities? So this is the first question. The second is what support measures are you promoting from your respective agencies to help local and regional governments getting access to capital markets to finance their local projects? And the last one is about exploring links. How could your agency be more involved, or at least engage in some way or another in the development of the IMF? How do you see that engagement from your perspective? So I will first let Frédéric Audras in to answer these questions. So Frédéric Audras, you have 7 minutes.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup Mathilde, et merci de poser 3 questions qui n'étaient pas tout à fait prévues dans cet ordre, mais je vais m'arranger. Donc pour répondre à la première question, je dirais est-ce que IMF is fit for purpose for municipalities? Oui, moi je dirais je suis complètement d'accord et je vais vous en parler après. Je pense que ce qui est important, notamment dans ce que nous vivons depuis la crise Covid et l'impact que cela peut avoir pour les collectivités locales, il faut que nous arrivions à mobiliser le secteur privé et l'épargne privée dans de nombreux pays d'intervention, et les pays d'intervention dont vous parlez qui vont concerner ce fonds en particulier. Donc je comprends hors OCDE, et voilà, il faut qu'on arrive à mobiliser cette capacité d'investissement privé au service des politiques publiques. Et ce que je trouve extrêmement intéressant, c'est que la démarche se fait complètement sur, je dirais, l'appui sur l'atteinte des objectifs de développement durable, et notamment, je comprends aussi sur les objectifs climat, à la fois en termes d'adaptation et d'atténuation. Alors, deuxièmement, ce que je dirais, on partage les objectifs également de cette démarche, parce qu'au sein de l'Agence française de développement, l'un de nos grands objectifs stratégiques sur la ville durable est de renforcer les acteurs locaux de la ville à travers 2 axes. Alors nous, ce que l'on fait, je dirais un petit peu traditionnellement, mais sur lequel nous accélérons beaucoup en ce moment, c'est vraiment l'appui au processus de décentralisation, c'est-à-dire ici accompagner des réformes qui visent au renforcement et à la mise en œuvre effective de la décentralisation à travers des prêts de politique publique. C'est-à-dire qu'ici, on travaille avec à la fois du côté des ministères, de la ville, de la décentralisation, du développement urbain, mais également les collectivités locales, sur des sujets, sur les points clés de la décentralisation, notamment sur la rationalisation, l'accroissement et l'amélioration de la prévisibilité des transferts financiers de l'État aux collectivités locales. Ça, c'est un point extrêmement important pour que les collectivités locales puissent construire des budgets pluriannuels en relative sécurité. Le deuxième type d'appui, c'est améliorer le cadre de recouvrement de la fiscalité locale, et ensuite l'accès facilité à l'emprunt. Et le dernier type d'appui, c'est le dispositif de formation de la fonction publique territoriale. Alors, ces programmes, comme va l'être le fonds, sont vraiment ciblés vers les villes intermédiaires. On n'exclut pas les capitales, mais les capitales des États dans lesquels nous travaillons ont généralement la capacité à mobiliser des fonds externes, de lever parfois des emprunts obligataires. Donc on vise en priorité, nous, les villes intermédiaires. Et souvent, sur l'approche décentralisation, on est sur des mécaniques de type approche basée sur les résultats. C'est les Programs for Results, que je dirais une approche que nous partageons avec la Banque mondiale et qui est vraiment dans une logique gagnant-gagnant, si je peux m'exprimer ainsi, c'est-à-dire que ça conduit l'État à améliorer les ressources financières et humaines des collectivités locales qui démontrent les capacités, pour les collectivités locales qui démontrent leur capacité à être plus performantes. Et c'est ce type de programme-là que, par exemple, on met en place au Sénégal avec l'appui de la Banque mondiale. Le deuxième grand axe pour nous d'appui, de renforcement des acteurs locaux en charge de la ville, c'est l'accompagnement de leurs programmes d'investissement et l'accès au financement. Alors, l'idée ici, hein, c'est à la fois de les aider à accéder au financement à travers un niveau de maturité stratégique nécessaire, et c'est aussi un dialogue de gestion sur leurs processus, leurs marges de manœuvre techniques et financières, et également sur leurs outils de planification et de budgétisation des investissements. Donc là, on retrouve un petit peu hein, ce qui vient d'être présenté à l'instant par Jeffer sur la partie accompagnement technique et puis un petit peu la phase de présélection des villes. Alors, vous savez aussi, bon, la possibilité que nous avons, c'est que dans les pays où le cadre de décentralisation le permet, et nous pouvons prêter directement, c'est-à-dire sans garantie souveraine, aux collectivités locales et à leurs opérateurs. Alors, historiquement, on l'a fait sur des projets spécifiques, hein, c'est-à-dire on isole un projet d'infrastructure en particulier qui va générer des revenus et on accompagne la collectivité en la finançant et ces revenus créés vont lui permettre de rembourser le prêt. On peut élargir complètement, on a complètement élargi après sur des projets spécifiques, hein, sur des programmes d'investissement. Par exemple, on va financer des programmes de logement en particulier, donc là, une ambition un petit peu plus large. Des grands programmes de politique publique, c'est toute la programmation de développement urbain, c'est ce que l'on a fait par exemple avec la ville de Jobourg en Afrique du Sud. Et de plus en plus, et ça c'est en Amérique latine notamment, on va mobiliser des ressources financières et techniques pour soutenir des agendas 2030 de collectivités locales. Et donc ça, on vient de le faire, voilà, on vient de le faire notamment au Brésil et en Colombie. Et à chaque fois, on mobilise évidemment des programmes de renforcement de capacité ou de coopération technique. On mobilise des ressources de l'Union européenne en général sur ces aspects-là, et coopérations techniques qui peuvent être des coopérations de collectivités locales françaises directement avec la collectivité locale étrangère. Alors, néanmoins, à travers ce dispositif qui est un petit peu classique, on partage vraiment avec vous le constat commun qu'il est nécessaire d'élargir ces actions, hein. Notamment, je veux dire, la pandémie actuelle qui met en lumière l'importance de l'acteur local pour répondre aux besoins essentiels hein, des populations, nous impose de renforcer ou d'accélérer hein, nos réflexions pour élargir notre offre. Alors, dans le cadre de cette réflexion, on a un petit peu 3 étapes, nous, si vous voulez. Une première étape, elle est en cours de réalisation. Vous savez qu'en ce moment se tient à Paris, mais en format de sommet virtuel, le Financing Commons, c'est-à-dire le sommet des banques publiques de développement, dont une des thématiques va être le financement de la ville résiliente. Donc ça se déroule à partir d'aujourd'hui jusqu'à demain. C'est dans le cadre du Forum de Paris pour la paix. Et d'ailleurs, un petit clin d'œil, la question du financement de la ville résiliente sera notamment abordée par le Fonds mondial de développement des villes qui fera une intervention dans un des ateliers, de ce sommet. Voilà, Jean-François Abault qui interviendra. Donc là, c'est un petit peu l'étape de sensibilisation. On est en train d'essayer de montrer, si vous voulez, que l'acteur public local, la collectivité locale, porte ces enjeux de résilience climatique notamment. Seconde étape, il faut, comme vous allez le faire, hein, viser à inciter les banques commerciales à prendre le risque d'intervenir auprès des collectivités locales et permettre aux collectivités de toute taille de bénéficier de prêts à des conditions financières intéressantes. Alors c'est dans cette approche notamment que nous allons développer, nous sommes en train de développer avec le soutien de l'Union européenne, un instrument de garantie dédié que nous avons nommé Cityrise et qui sera déployé mi-2021 sur le continent africain pour démarrer. Quelle est l'idée ici? C'est d'aller voir les banques publiques ou les banques privées sur le continent africain, de leur dire, écoutez, voilà, nous accompagnons telle et telle ville intermédiaire dans votre pays. Elles sont à un niveau de maturité de gestion, à un niveau de maturité technique suffisant pour qu'elles puissent porter des projets d'investissement. pour qu'elles puissent les financer, elles ont besoin de prêts de votre part, banque publique ou banque privée. Et nous, si ces banques publiques y vont, prennent ce risque-là, nous allons le garantir. Et notre dispositif, après, nous serons contre-garantis partiellement, uniquement par l'Union européenne. Donc, c'est quelque chose qui va avoir un format de prototype que nous allons mettre en place à partir de mi-2021 et nous espérons que ça fonctionnera bien. Et c'est quelque chose qui peut complètement s'imbriquer avec le fonds que vous venez de présenter, puisque je comprends qu'il y aura un appel à des cofinancements de banques locales. Une troisième étape de nous permettre d'être encore plus...
Juste
oui,
pour vous dire, vous avez une à 2 minutes en plus.
Je conclue. Dernière étape ici, c'est d'être encore plus innovant. C'est de peut-être ce que nous allons faire, c'est de financer des véhicules de financement dédiés aux villes intermédiaires. Nous allons le tester en Afrique du Sud avec des investisseurs privés et le soutien à la coopération suisse. Voilà, donc ce que je voulais vous dire ici, c'est qu'effectivement, introduire les investisseurs privés dans le financement des villes intermédiaires, oui, nous y sommes favorables et nous y sommes d'autant plus favorables à partir du moment où on puisse aussi inscrire tout ça dans l'atteinte des objectifs de développement durable et intégrer des éléments sur le climat, adaptation et atténuation climat. Voilà, je m'arrête là.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Just a quick question also for you before I move on to our last speaker. You mentioned these concrete ways, no, we can find to bridge gaps, to create synergies between the initiative that the AFD is promoting and ours with the IMIF. Can you give us a concrete idea of how this can be materialized in practice? How can these synergies be built in practice between the AFD initiatives and ours, the IMIF? Over to you.
Si. Prenons l'exemple vous allez accompagner une ou plusieurs villes africaines, nous intermédiaires dans un pays donné. Nous, si on peut intervenir sur ce pays, c'est-à-dire inciter avec notre dispositif de garantie, inciter une banque locale à cofinancer avec vous ce projet. Et on introduit comme vous des critères de soutenabilité, de durabilité des investissements, ou autrement on peut être en cofinancement avec vous sur ce projet. Je pense qu'il y a vraiment matière, et puis entre nous, il y a quand même beaucoup d'espace, et il y a beaucoup d'espace de financement. On fera, nous, à chaque fois, ce qui est le mieux. Hein, et notre souhait, c'est pas du tout de prendre la place du secteur privé, c'est de combler les manques de l'offre secteur privé sur les collectivités locales. Voilà.
Merci beaucoup. So now I just move on to our last speaker for this first panel. Kevin Nelson, you have 7 minutes. Basically the same questions, if you have them in mind. Over to you.
Yes, thank you very much.
And yeah, I think you have a presentation, right?
Yes, I do have a presentation.
Yeah.
Why don't we pull that up, and I'll just review the 3 questions. And I believe through the slides, I will talk specifically about the fit for purpose of the IMIF. The second question related to what support measures does USAID have in place, and I'll talk about that, specifically about the journey to self-reliance, which is our main framing for our engagement with local governments. And then third, just in terms of exploring the linkages between our work and the IMIF and how those synergies can come together. So next slide, please. So to set the stage, just in terms of the way that USAID thinks about urbanization and thinking about cities, we all know these things in terms of, the population is rapidly growing. We take a sector-based systems approach, as many other organizations do, in terms of the relevant sectors come together in cities, in municipalities. And because our funding is set up that it's specifically sector-based, that just means we need to work more collaboratively within our agency as well as with our partners to think through those relevant solutions. So I'm happy that this fund has come together to help kind of bring forward the ways that we can address urbanization in the cities that we're trying to work on. And then finally, the third main point, and this gets to the groundwork that we've laid in our agency during this administration, is thinking about what we call the journey to self-reliance. We're thinking specifically here about financing self-reliance and how, in terms of aligning, both capacity building as well as technical assistance, that can move many of the cities that we're working with, specifically the secondary cities that is the focus of our urbanization programming, to move them along to self-sufficiency as well as livelihoods. Next slide, please. So just very briefly, we think about this in a system economically competitiveness, generating and capturing revenue, and then bringing that to bear in terms of revenue sources, so that we can provide effective services in the urban context. So with that process really is at the basis of what we're trying to do. Next slide. So with that, the work specifically, and this relates to the question about our support measures. USAID has been working since 2013 from a urban policy that we look at that coordination that I mentioned in terms of the economically competitiveness, as well as getting to urban service delivery in that sector-based systems approach. But more recently, the Development Finance Corporation, which was spun out of USAID and now sits on its own, they have released just this past month a roadmap for impact, and I'll talk just briefly about that. In terms of the priorities. So next slide, please. So in terms of the roadmap for impact, that looks at, similarly to the level of effort in terms of some of the investment, we're looking at investing $25 million of taxpayer money to catalyze an additional $50 billion worth of private sector investment across 6 priority development sectors, which are not surprisingly similar to those that I believe that the IMIF seeks to address: energy, food security, healthcare, technology and infrastructure, financial inclusion, and WASH. So the reason for mentioning this is that with USAID and with the US government, we're grounding first and foremost on investing in this journey to self-reliance, thinking about this impact that our DFC, what they're laying as their groundwork, and how that then matches specifically towards exploring those linkages. So we want to get our house in order, in order first to then align some of that investment with the projects that I think that are coming online, specifically within the IMIF. Next slide, please. So particularly with that, because this is a fairly new undertaking, and even more so specifically with the alignment of our DFC to work specifically in cities and secondary cities, we are trying to put forth this current pipeline that we have, about 66 transactions that are sponsored by USAID, many of which work in those secondary cities, work in the countries that I think are of both priority to us, as well as many donors, as well as the UN. So our work now, and this is where we get to the part of alignment. Next slide, please. Really gets at thinking about our own urban programming, things that we've invested in from an urban standpoint, which I know many of these countries, many of these projects and topics align with the programming that I believe the IMIF is seeking to invest in, whether it be governance and transparency, or WASH, or ocean plastics, some of that municipal waste recycling. So with those things, we feel that fit for purpose of looking at grants, technical assistance, in the same way that this urban programming that my office has been investing in, we're seeing where those gaps are, and feel and hope that this fund can take many of these projects that we've invested in, that we've coordinated with many other partners, bring that to a capacity that I think would be most beneficial to the local governments that we're trying to serve. And then specifically with that, thinking about the results. So that is one thing. In the last slide, please. The results that we're working on really get at that coordination. So strengthening the alignment, which I've talked about, identifying those key missions, which I think there will be continued confluence of that in terms of priorities that the UN has identified, as well as the USG, developing those indicators and metrics to illustrate that leverage. And that's where I'd like to see a little bit more discussion as we move forward in terms of those metrics, so that our investment really can be to that that point of multiple benefits for either targeted or singular investment. So we make that one investment, but then it benefits and creates those catalytic investments that cross many of those sectors that I talked about in terms of where we see the secondary cities trying to bring together both addressing decentralization, but then also addressing infrastructure issues as well as energy and the like. So I think there's a lot of alignment that's already happening, but as I mentioned, both with setting up the DFC as well as the election that just happened this past week, we will see in the new administration. We'll have to wait and see where some of those priorities are. But I think the groundwork that we've laid, specifically getting at a similar process of grants and technical assistance of that capacity building, and thinking about what those measures are and those linkages, I think we're on the right footing for the near term and the foreseeable future. So I'll pause there, and if there are any follow-up questions, I can certainly talk through those or in the broader array. Thank you very much. Over.
Thank you, Kevin Nelson. I will just now open the floor because we are a bit, we have been delayed, but thank you all for your very interesting presentations. I think we were just looking for that now to hear your reactions on the IMIF, also to guide us to move forward in this project. So I've seen no comments in the chat box, but perhaps someone, Cemal, over to you. I see your blue hand.
Thank you very much, Matilda. And thank you very much for all the speakers, but I would like to take the opportunity to thank David Jackson as well for the local government finance blog that I keep receiving. It's such an informative emails. My question is to all partners, but also David Jackson as well. As we are in Guangzhou right now in China, how are we finding synergies for the Belt and Road Initiative? Because it's such a big financing agreements and financing program, and we are also aiming to non-OECD countries, which Belt and Road Initiative also aims there very highly as well. But there's also a problem that the Western financing model is not very much speaking to the Chinese investment project assessments as well. So how do we find synergies there as well for increasing financing opportunities? Thank you very much.
I don't know if David or Jaffer wants to react first.
I mean, thank you so much for the question. Maybe I can answer that when I have my speaking slot a little bit later in the session, but I'll make a note of it and I will definitely refer to it during my speaking slot. But thank you so much indeed for the question, and thank you for the compliments too. Thank you.
Kevin or Frédéric, do you want to react on that question?
Yeah, I think just very briefly with the Belt and Road Initiative. As I mentioned, this administration, and I believe some of this will carry over into our next administration too for the USG. We definitely, through this journey to self-reliance and the effort that we have in terms of the investments that we try to make in the countries that we're working in, we look at it as a long-term investment.
And with that, whether it's Indo-Pacific or whether it's working deliberately in Africa, we see that we have a program called Clear Choice, which is that the investments that we're providing and the financing that we're providing and the technical assistance that we're providing are meant to be, like I said, on this marketed way towards this self-reliance that countries can enjoy with the investment of U.S. capacity building. And we see that as a bit of a difference between some of the infrastructure advancement that the Chinese might bring to bear. But I think that's sort of the dichotomy that we try to put forth in terms of a clear choice of a long-term investment that that our missions and the local governments that we're working with are intending to be invested in. So thank you.
Oui, moi, mon côté, non, j'ai pas d'autre chose à ajouter hein, sur ce type d'investissement. Je dirais s'il s'inscrit effectivement dans une trajectoire de développement économique liée à cette effectivement la route de la soie. Enfin voilà, je pense que tout peut être regardé de notre côté, quoi. Et je précise que nous sommes également installés en Chine, donc effectivement, donc voilà, les relations sont aussi avec les autorités chinoises, y compris dans les investissements qui le financent dans les diverses géographies du monde.
Thank you. Does anyone has another question? Otherwise, we will just move on to the second panel. I'm just looking at the list of participants. I see no virtual hand, so I will just hand over to Serge to introduce the second panel, which will be based on the experiences of cities, of local governments. So Serge, over to you.
Merci Mathilde. Thank you very much. Donc deuxième session. Donc on a un peu dépassé le temps qu'on avait imaginé pour cette première, mais c'était très bien. Donc je cède tout de suite la parole à Émilie pour animer la seconde partie de notre discussion, donc avec plusieurs villes qui ont bénéficié d'un appui de l'UNIF pour structurer leurs projets. Donc voilà, en savoir un peu plus sur leur expérience, aussi sur leurs recommandations peut-être pour la suite. Donc Émilie, la parole est à toi.
Bonjour, je suis Émilie Mayara, directrice des programmes du Fonds mondial pour le développement des villes, le FMDV, qui est un réseau de collectivités locales dédié au financement et à l'investissement sur les solutions de développement urbain. Et donc, nous sommes partenaires de l'AMIF. Je suis très heureuse d'animer cette session aujourd'hui avec deux maires qui ont en particulier bénéficié de l'accompagnement du Fonds international d'investissement municipal. Et donc, je souhaiterais aujourd'hui les interroger pour avoir un retour d'expérience concret de cette première phase d'accompagnement. Donc, comme vous le savez, le contexte sanitaire a rendu l'accompagnement un peu spécifique. On n'a pas pu faire de mission de terrain pour accompagner les collectivités locales dans l'élaboration de leurs projets. Et donc, il y a eu beaucoup d'échanges plutôt sous forme de questionnaires, voilà, pour essayer de vraiment renforcer la maturité technique et financière de ces projets. Donc, j'accueille maintenant Monsieur Osei Asibey Antwi, qui est maire de Kumasi au Ghana et qui est accompagné donc par l'AMIF pour un projet de transport rapide par bus, donc en anglais Bus Rapid Transit, BRT, et Monsieur Mohamed Sefiani, qui est maire de Chefchaouen au Maroc et qui bénéficie d'un accompagnement dans le cadre d'un projet d'éclairage public. J'accueille également dans cette session Madame Esther Mogiorosi, qui est responsable des financements innovants de ICLEI et qui nous présentera donc les modalités d'articulation de l'initiative TAP ICLEI, qui est une facilité de préparation de projet, avec l'AMIF. Donc, si vous le permettez, je souhaiterais qu'on anime cette discussion sous forme voilà, d'une discussion un peu vivante, sans présentation. Et évidemment, vous pouvez poser vos questions dans la chat box et il y aura également un temps de questions-réponses avec les intervenants à la fin. Alors, la première question que je souhaiterais poser au maire, c'est qu'est-ce qui a été fait jusqu'à présent? Comment votre projet a-t-il été accompagné par l'AMIF et comment cet accompagnement a fait évoluer votre projet? Je vous en prie, je ne sais pas qui souhaite prendre la parole en premier. Monsieur Sefiani?
Ok, merci Émilie. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Effectivement, tout d'abord, en tant que président du Forum des villes intermédiaires de Ségélis, je suis vraiment ravi, très content qu'il y a donc un fonds qui est dédié spécialement et en majorité aux villes intermédiaires et notamment dans les pays en voie de développement. Donc globalement, c'est le Global South. Et ça, c'est vraiment une véritable nécessité des villes intermédiaires. Comme ça a été dit avant, ils ont un vrai besoin d'un accompagnement en termes d'appui technique et d'une assistance technique pour l'élaboration et la gestion des projets et l'accès à la finance internationale. Donc ça, c'est vraiment c'est un point fort de cette belle initiative qui était née à Madrid lors de la tenue du bureau exécutif de UCLG. Et puis maintenant, c'est un bébé qui grandit et qu'on voit qu'il avance. Et là, en tant que maire de la ville de Chefchaouen, lorsqu'il y avait un appel à candidature qui a été lancé, nous avons postulé comme les autres villes et nous étions ravis d'avoir notre candidature acceptée et par le comité d'évaluation. Et le sujet, comme vous l'avez dit, Émilie, c'est l'éclairage public parce que ça fait partie de notre plan d'action. Ça fait partie aussi de notre projet, nos projets climat et notamment l'atténuation et aussi ça pour réduire la facture énergétique de la municipalité et pour être beaucoup plus smart en termes de gestion de ce réseau d'éclairage public qui représente pour nous actuellement quelques 23%, non, quelques 8% du budget municipal. Donc là, je dirais aussi, il y avait le début d'accompagnement après l'annonce de l'acceptation, avec des échanges des documents, des échanges de questionnaires, de remplissage questionnaires, et ça avec mon équipe. Donc mon équipe, il a été assistée bien sûr par le consortium. UCD, IMIF, UNCDF et bien sûr le FMDV. Et il y avait la pandémie en fait qui a un peu bouleversé un petit peu, qui a retardé un petit peu, je dirais, l'avancement de ce projet-là. Et je dirais maintenant, il y avait après ces discussions, vraiment des questions techniques, financières, d'évaluation des documents. Nos équipes ont pu, avec l'assistance technique, remplir et renseigner l'ensemble des formulaires et la livraison des documents. C'était prévu de faire des visites sur place, terrain, mais les déplacements ici au Maroc ne sont pas faciles. Depuis la mise en place de l'état d'urgence sanitaire, nous sommes toujours en état d'urgence sanitaire. Donc, je dirais maintenant, nous attendons maintenant les résultats. Entre-temps, nous ne sommes pas arrêtés. Nous avons commencé avec nos propres moyens de changer, parce que c'est l'éclairage public, c'est d'utiliser la technologie LED, c'est à basse consommation d'énergie, mais entre-temps, nous avons fait des efforts avec nos propres moyens et nous avons pu quand même exécuter les projets avec nos propres moyens à terme de 25% à peu près par rapport à ce que coûtait l'ensemble du projet, la taille des projets. Nous avions une belle étude en fait technique sur un diagnostic détaillé, point lumineux par point lumineux. Ça a été élaboré par des experts. Et sur cette base-là que nous avons présenté notre candidature, sur cette base-là que nous sommes en train de réaliser notre projet, mais les 75% à peu près que nous attendons en financement. Donc, nous attendons après l'analyse des documents pour que ce soit soumis aux bailleurs de fonds et à l'EMIF. Et bien sûr, ça a été dit tout à l'heure, je crois que c'est 2021, ça va être l'année de la concrétisation et de réalisation de ce projet-là, je l'espère bien.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le maire. Est-ce que vous estimez que cet accompagnement en assistance technique par l'AMIF a fait évoluer positivement votre projet?
Oui, exactement, exactement. Moi, je dis toujours, au niveau de l'ensemble des villes, même, il y en a même quelques villes métropoles et l'ensemble des villes intermédiaires que nous avons un véritable besoin. Nous savons élaborer maintenant nos plans d'action. Nous savons faire des études techniques. Ça existe chez nous au niveau de l'expertise nationale. Mais transformer un projet qui est vraiment technique, un projet qui est prêt à être présenté à une institution financière, ça, au niveau de nos villes, nous ne savons pas le faire. Donc, c'était pour nous un grand besoin. Et je dirais, c'est le maillon de la chaîne qui manquait pour l'accès à la finance climat. Je crois que c'est pour cela que l'AMIF et cette initiative, elle est venue à temps pour ça. Donc, c'est un véritable besoin pour nos équipes techniques qui ne sont pas spécialistes en finance internationale, mais qui ont été aidées à élaborer, à répondre aux questionnaires, à mieux présenter les documents, à mieux lire les documents financiers, les budgets, les prévisions et tout ça. Et je crois que ça, c'est une bonne chose pour nous et pour l'ensemble des villes intermédiaires dans le monde.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le maire. Je vais maintenant me tourner vers Monsieur Osei Asibey Antwi, maire de Koumassi au Ghana, pour lui poser la même question. Monsieur le maire, pouvez-vous nous présenter quel accompagnement a été réalisé par l'AMIF sur votre projet de BRT, s'il vous plaît? Merci beaucoup.
First of all, let me take this opportunity to thank you for our selection to be part of the IMIF beneficiary. As the question goes, it has really helped us because after our selection, there was the need for us to actually work on our proposal because in Durban, we submitted our proposal, but when we came back home, there was the need to quickly update the proposal that was submitted. And by the kind courtesy of UNCDF team, we've been able to update it, even though because of the COVID, they were not able to come here. But by virtue of the fact that they were committed in providing us support in the form of technical assistance towards the conduct of feasibility studies to establish the bankability of the selected project, we quickly work with them. And because of their assistance and through the virtual meetings that we've been having, now we've been able to work on the terms of the reference. We prepared it, and what we are now waiting for is the selection of a consultant to conduct the feasibility studies. So I would say that we have really had support from them in working on these projects.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le maire. Donc, merci pour vos témoignages très positifs sur vraiment le fait que l'AMIF répond à un besoin d'accompagnement en assistance technique pour les villes secondaires sur cette phase de renforcement de la maturité technique et financière dans le cadre de la préparation de projet. Maintenant, je souhaiterais vous demander, puisqu'on est entre maires, praticiens de la ville, Quelles contraintes avez-vous rencontrées? Quelles difficultés avez-vous rencontrées dans le cadre de votre accompagnement, de l'élaboration de votre projet, et quelles sont vos pistes d'amélioration? Monsieur Sefiani?
First of all, I will work on the challenges. That is with the emergence of the COVID-19 and its associated travel ban, which prevent face-to-face engagement. But it really inhibited us from getting the direct representatives of our people. That is getting access to meet them one-on-one to be able to work on it. But yet, that was the real challenge. They were not able to come because of the ban. And with regard to the second challenges, the economic and financial viability, which tend to be the focus of the IMIF, limit project initiatives, ideas that can have significant social project impacts. Because now we are looking at the viability. So it goes highly at times to prevent projects which will have had social importance to or social benefit to the people. And again, the financial support for the local team to collect the initial data to inform project concept and design is also another challenge that we are facing. And thirdly, I think that going into the near future, if our local team can also be worked on so as to have enhanced capacity to work on data collections, that one will also help. But as it is now, there are a lot of projects which the local team do not have the expertise to be able to work on the feasibility studies. So that is also another challenge that we are facing.
Thank you very much. Monsieur Sefiani, vous voulez nous présenter les contraintes que vous avez rencontrées et les recommandations d'amélioration?
Oui, moi je dirais que c'est un instrument important d'aider les villes à implémenter les différents agendas. Et là, je crois qu'on n'a pas le droit de ne pas réussir. Ça veut dire l'échec de ces initiatives, de quelques initiatives, n'est pas une option. Et moi, je suis sûr, le fait qu'il y a des organisations qui sont fortes, qui ont de l'expertise, et chacun dans son domaine, UCLG, UNCDI, FNDV, etc., dans le cadre de l'IMIF, je crois que ça va être une belle expérience. Maintenant, ma recommandation, c'est qu'il faut faire vite. Il faut faire vite. C'est le temps de l'urgence. Et l'urgence dans tout, y compris la concrétisation des projets. Et là aussi, ça va nous donner beaucoup plus de crédibilité vis-à-vis des organisations internationales. Lorsqu'on dit, par exemple, on est là, on veut localiser les NDC, on veut les villes, ils sont importantes, oui, c'est vrai. Mais maintenant, il faut commencer à avoir des projets concrets sur place avec une assistance technique, avec une organisation et des projets d'atténuation, des projets d'adaptation climat. Je crois donc que si ça va être fait, ma recommandation vraiment concrétisée et présentée à Glasgow, mais avec des projets réalisés, c'est beaucoup mieux de le présenter à Glasgow et nous avons un an devant nous comme un projet en cours. C'est ça ma recommandation et ça va donner, comme j'ai dit, beaucoup plus de crédibilité au mouvement municipaliste déjà dans le monde. On demande de localiser, de décentraliser les agendas et aussi à nos citoyens qui nous suivent aussi, qui attendent des résultats concrets, qu'on fait du lobbying, qu'on fait ça au niveau mondial, au niveau africain, c'est une très très bonne chose, mais aussi les citoyens veulent aussi voir des résultats concrets, des projets concrets sur le territoire et qui pouvons, parce que nous avons des engagements de réduire les gaz à effet de serre au niveau de la vie, au niveau de la Convention des maires, de 45% à l'horizon 2030. Et ça, c'est voir déjà qu'on avance très bien. Et on pourra après le présenter dans le monde entier et parler avec les gouvernements nationaux pour leur dire voilà, les gouvernements locaux, les villes, ils peuvent faire, ils le font concrètement. Ce ne sont pas des paroles seulement, mais ce sont des projets concrets. Donc, Horizon, Glasgow, la COP26, pour présenter des projets déjà réalisés, c'est ça ma recommandation et mon rêve.
Merci, Monsieur Sefiani. Je crois que tous les participants partagent votre rêve aujourd'hui. Merci beaucoup pour cet engagement politique très fort. La dernière question que je souhaiterais vous poser, c'est quelles recommandations donneriez-vous à d'autres villes qui souhaiteraient être accompagnées par l'AMIF? Je vous en prie, si vous souhaitez prendre la parole, Monsieur Sefiani. Ah, vous êtes en mute.
D'accord.
Voilà.
Maintenant, oui. Oui, moi, je recommande vivement aux villes intermédiaires de s'intéresser à ces initiatives, et notamment les villes intermédiaires en Afrique qui ont le Global South. Parce que c'est un créneau qui s'ouvre. C'est une assistance technique qui est donnée, je dirais, gratuitement quand même aux équipes locales. Et ce sont des experts mondiaux qui le font, dans des organisations mondiales, et chacun a sa spécialité. Je crois que ça, c'est une opportunité qu'on ne doit pas rater. Et ça, dans le cadre des associations nationales, des réseaux thématiques, soit au niveau continental, soit au niveau pays, on va diffuser davantage l'information pour que les villes intermédiaires, lorsqu'il y a un appel à candidature, un nouveau appel à candidature, elles présentent. Et là, dans des domaines différents d'atténuation, d'adaptation, nous savons qu'il y a des vrais besoins. Et chaque fois, on a des réunions avec des maires, en Afrique, au Maroc ou partout, on parle d'un appui technique pour pouvoir accéder aux finances. Je crois que c'est une initiative qui est très importante et je suis très confiant des résultats positifs qu'il aura sur le terrain.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le maire. Vous êtes les meilleurs ambassadeurs de l'AMIF. Monsieur le maire de Koumassi, est-ce que vous avez des recommandations à donner à vos pairs pour être accompagnés par l'AMIF?
Hello.
Yes.
The question again.
Yeah. Would you give any recommendations to other mayors that are interested in the IMF?
Well, in fact, it's going to be very positive. I have even started talking to some of my friends who we met in Durban and those around my country, that is especially those in the capital towns. I've started talking to them about the importance of IMIF and the support that we've been receiving from them, especially the technical support. I have recommended to them that if they get the opportunity, they should join. But joining is going to help them. Because I know that with our collaboration, it's enhancing the capacity of my team. And in a way, it's also going to help us to be very resourceful, to be able to meet the needs of our people. So I will take this opportunity to thank the IMIF, and I also thank the team, that is the UNDC. I also thank them for their technical support.
Thank you very much, Mr. Meyer. Merci beaucoup à vous deux. Donc, je vous remercie d'être les meilleurs ambassadeurs de l'AMIF et je souhaite vraiment que cette initiative continue à se développer au maximum, notamment dans les villes secondaires. Je souhaiterais maintenant donner la parole à Esther Mogio-Rossi, donc, qui va nous présenter la manière dont l'initiative ICLEITAP prévoit de s'articuler avec l'AMIF pour encore renforcer l'impact de nos initiatives communes. Merci beaucoup.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really pleased and very honored to be here and to speak about our collaboration around the IMIF. Oh yeah, thank you. I have a very quick presentation, but really just a few slides. So the TAP, the Transformative Actions Program, was already mentioned a few times today. And as maybe many of you don't know yet the program, just to explain what we do here. So the TAP is a project pipeline, but also a project preparation facility. And we also use it as an advocacy instrument to show the demand and the diversity of subnational and local projects. The TAP was first launched in 2015. And actually, it's a great timing now also to announce that the next call will be open next week on the 18th of November. So we are again opening the pipeline for new applications. The ICLEI is managed by, the TAP is managed by ICLEI World Secretariat, but if you know ICLEI, you know that we have the World Secretariat based in Bonn, Germany, but then we work together with 23 regional offices all over the world. So we, of course, work very closely together with them because they are the one being in the country on the ground, and they are the one having a direct contact with the local and the regional governments. And very importantly, the TAP wouldn't be possible without the TAP partners. And FMDV, UCLG, UNCDF, they are all amongst our partners. I will show the partners on a slide later. So at the moment, we have 66 projects in the pipeline with an investment potential of 2.5 billion euro. And since 2015, we managed to tap 25 projects, which means to help them to get finance, technical assistance, or anyhow to move forward with their project development. For us, it was a big recognition last year that the TAP became also part of the LUCI, the Leadership for Urban Climate Investment. And with the next slide, I just very quickly want to show you how the whole process is and how we connected also with the IMIF. So we have these annual calls where we receive the applications, and after that we do a screening. So far, our screening was based on the transformative approach of the projects, but from next year on or this year on already, we will also do a financial screening, a financial viability screening. And then projects which proved high transformative potential, they are the one who can access services. And for example, our collaboration with the IMIF is one of the services which we offer only for projects which already prove high transformative impact potential. So we started our collaboration actually already last year, and then we shared with the IMIF team the projects that we thought that could be interesting and are robust enough to be considered also by IMIF. And we narrowed down this list together, and after that we of course gathered additional documents from those project submitters, and then they were also asked to fill out an online questionnaire for further screening. And at the moment, we are at the stage when 4 projects were qualified to be considered for further screening, and 2 from Africa, 1 from Cape Town and 1 from Yaoundé for Cameroon, and 2 projects from Indonesia, Balikpapan and Jambi City. So at the moment, we are in the stage of setting up calls where the cities and the IMIF team can directly discuss how to proceed further. And I really have to say that we need more IMIF. Definitely, our projects they need more IMIF, and also the collaboration with the IMIF team. We work together with many other, project preparation facility and technical assistance providers, and I really have to say that our collaboration with the IMIF team is far the best, and also the feedback what we receive and what the projects receive, because many times there is just no feedback coming, so it's very much needed and appreciated, and we need more technical assistance for project preparation. And finally, just to show our partners, because the next slide. So yeah, we have 14 partners at the moment. And as you can see, I already even mentioned UNCDF, FMDB, UCRG, they are all, of course, among our partners. At the moment, how this partnership works, we have bilateral agreements with each partner. So as you can see, it's a big diversity of technical and financial partners. So we have specific agreements with each of them on how we collaborate and how we work together on project preparation, what kind of support we can offer. Thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer questions if you have any.
Merci beaucoup Esther. Donc, ce que j'entends à travers votre intervention et les interventions précédentes, c'est l'importance de la coopération entre tous les acteurs, puisqu'il existe de nombreuses sources de financement tout au long de la chaîne de valeur du financement urbain, de l'amont à l'investissement, et voilà, qu'on doit vraiment apprendre à mieux travailler ensemble au service des besoins des villes. Donc effectivement, il existe de fortes complémentarités entre l'initiative TAP portée par ICLEI et l'AMIF, et c'est vraiment un exemple des collaborations qu'on doit développer entre facilités de préparation de projets et ensuite en aval avec les différents bailleurs bilatéraux, multilatéraux et les investisseurs privés. Maintenant, après ces présentations, je souhaiterais savoir si certains participants ont des questions. Donc, on nous a demandé dans le chat s'il était possible de partager la présentation de TAP ICLEI. Est-ce que d'autres personnes souhaitent poser des questions aux intervenants? Alors, je ne vois pas de questions. Donc, si cela vous convient, je vous propose de clôturer cette session et de repasser la parole à Serge Alou pour la suite de l'événement. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Emily. Thank you very much, Emily.
Serge, sorry, I think we have a blue raised hand from Galia Juan, who wants to speak.
Okay.
Désolée, je n'ai pas vu, pardon.
Sorry.
Galia, you're on mute. Can you please unmute your microphone?
J'ai activé le micro. Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
C'est bon.
Ah, merci. Bonjour, donc je suis Galia Juan. Alors, je tiens à vous saluer, à saluer Serge Alou et tous les organisateurs. Je m'exprime pour l'instant juste en mon nom personnel. Je vais bientôt rejoindre Cities Alliance. Et je suis ravie d'avoir été invitée à en amont à cette conférence qui était extrêmement intéressante. Je voulais juste, il y avait 2-3 questions sur le fond en lui-même, mais je voulais déjà vous dire que je me réjouis vraiment et je félicite la décision de je félicite les initiateurs, le CGLU et tous ses partenaires vraiment de la décision de cette initiative et qui répond vraiment à un besoin significatif en fait dans l'investissement dans des infrastructures de qualité. Je me réjouis pour les villes intermédiaires, bien entendu. Je me réjouis également en fait et vous félicite du choix que vous avez fait d'avoir choisi Meridiam comme gestionnaire de fonds. Meridiam allie à la fois un très grand savoir-faire dans la gestion de fonds, mais aussi dans l'accompagnement et l'assistance technique de porteurs de projets. Donc, comme vous le savez, c'est une société d'investissement indépendante et qui est spécialisée vraiment dans le développement. C'est un gestionnaire qui finance et qui est dans la gestion de projets d'infrastructures publiques de long terme, qu'il est aussi l'un des leaders mondiaux de l'investissement dans les infrastructures publiques avec un portefeuille, je crois, de plusieurs milliards d'actifs. Mais ils ont vraiment une mission, en fait, dans l'accompagnement au profit du développement des pays du Sud. Et c'est là où ils sont vraiment exemplaires clair. Et ils ont monté un fonds qui est à peu près similaire justement à ce qui est là en train de se structurer, similaire à l'IMIF, et qui est le fonds Meridiam d'infrastructure Africa Fund. Meridiam Infrastructure Africa Fund, et qui cible en fait les infrastructures essentielles et en priorité dans les énergies, les transports, l'eau, l'assainissement et la santé. Et aussi, ce qui est très important, et je pense que l'IMIF va fonctionner de la même façon que le fonds monté par Meridiam, qui était un fonds à peu près équivalent en taille d'investissement. C'est un fonds en gros de 300 millions d'euros de mémoire. Et en fait, il intervient sur des projets, ce qu'on appelle des projets greenfield, c'est-à-dire très en amont dans le développement, auquel les investisseurs traditionnels s'intéressent très peu. Et ils offrent également une durée de financement qui est très longue, environ 15 ans. Et c'est des financements qui sont généralement peu disponibles localement pour les villes de taille intermédiaire. Du coup, pour ne pas être trop longue, je voulais juste savoir à ce stade à peu près, la stratégie d'investissement de IMIF, je l'ai à peu près compris, hein, c'est des investissements de projets d'environ 25 millions d'euros en greenfield, c'est des projets nouveaux de villes et des projets innovants. Et je voulais savoir quels seraient les secteurs prioritaires. Est-ce que vous ciblez d'emblée des secteurs prioritaires comme les transports, les routes, enfin les infrastructures essentielles? Et je voulais aussi savoir où en est Meridiam dans le bouclage du capital initial de 350 millions d'euros. Quel type de partenaire Meridiam est allé chercher? Peut-être que le closing n'est pas encore terminé, peut-être qu'il y a des partenaires principaux mais qui sont encore en recherche de partenaires complémentaires. Et je voulais savoir sous quelle forme, mais ça je pense que c'est peut-être un peu tôt pour le savoir, sous quelle forme interviendra ce fonds? Est-ce qu'il va intervenir sous forme d'investissement, sous forme majoritaire? Est-ce que IMIF va être majoritaire dans les projets, dans le financement des projets ou pas? Est-ce que j'ai cru comprendre que c'était du prêt et de l'equity, si j'ai bien compris? Voilà, j'avais juste quelques questions à ce stade pour un peu mieux comprendre tout le mécanisme, mais vraiment je vous félicite CGLU et tous vos partenaires de l'initiative. Je pense qu'il n'y a pas assez, il n'y a pas trop de fonds comme celui-là au niveau international pour financer les projets innovants et les nouveaux projets des villes de taille intermédiaire. Voilà, je m'arrêterai là. Merci beaucoup.
Alors, je ne sais pas si quelqu'un souhaite répondre aux questions de Madame Juan.
Emily, I suggest that you give the floor to either David or Jaffer to respond to these questions. Just one thing I wanted, before David, if you can ask some of these questions, just one thing. We wanted to have Meridiam around the table today, but it was impossible. It was impossible because, I mean, they are currently capitalizing the fund. There are very strict legal restrictions that impede them to say anything about the capitalization of the fund. So this is why we didn't have Meridiam today. But Jaffer, maybe you can comment on that. What we know is that, I mean, the capitalization, the incorporation of the fund is really on track now. There have been different various investors, both public and private, that has been contacted and that are joining our initiative. Just wanted to give this information to the people around the table today. For you to know, no, we really wanted to have Meridiam to tell us more about where they were about the capitalization of the fund, and we couldn't because of legal restrictions. Jaffer or David, please go
ahead. Thank you. I know David will answer more in his remarks, in the closing remarks, but very good question, Mrs. Galia. So I think we should respect the legal restriction that Saja Lu has discussed. And this is the reason we didn't talk in specific terms. However, we work closely with them. We know they're in this process now, both in the incorporation and capital rising. So I don't think that is any challenge at this point. I think the issue is restrictions of discussing it openly and naming names in terms of investors into it. In terms of how it will intervene, it's going to be very flexible based on the needs of the cities, because some cities will need loans, which majority of it, but some cities will need equity because of PPP transactions, and some cities might work on a guarantee basis because of the local markets. So there is that flexibility built in. But what's important, I think, to understand is we as partners, the one who did procurement and call for proposal to look for a fund manager to manage the fund. So this is the difference. The difference is this fund came from the Malaga Coalition partners, UCLG, FMDV, and UNCDF, and other networks, because we discussed quite a bit on this. And that's when we went out to look for a fund manager. So this is a fund which it will work for cities. This is the major difference. In terms of sectors, I think I did discuss earlier. Yes, this is an investment fund, so it will need a returns. So there are certain sectors will be a bit more easier, but it will also focus on SDG and Paris agreement in terms of interventions. Thank you.
David, would you like to add something at this stage, or at the end? I mean, in your wrap up and conclusions.
Perhaps just to say that I fully endorse your comments and Jaffa's comments. And when I wrap up, I will try to explain how this fund will be a little bit different from other funds. And certainly, in terms of more detailed questions, feel free to contact or to reach out by email or chat. But I think Jaffa and Serge have summed it up well. And I'll try and just explain how this fund will be a little bit different when I wrap up. Thank you.
Emily, is it fine with you? I mean, shall we move to the last part of the meeting? Okay. Please. Thank you so much. So just wanted also, because I said that the mayor of Tellita should have been with us, and she just sent me a WhatsApp message telling me that she had real problem to connect. I don't know what happened in the country today, but and she couldn't. Just wanted to excuse her. She wasn't able to participate. Maybe in another opportunity, we'll have another opportunity to also hear from her what was her experience. So with that, we're coming to the last part of our meeting. We've heard quite a lot of compliments on the necessity of the fund. I mean, that's absolutely needed, that we've been working very well with all the team, from everyone. I mean, from the mayors, from Esther. So, but we know we also have quite a lot of challenges ahead. So I would like to ask you, David and Jean-François, the mayor Sefiani said, failing is not an option. Failing is not an option. So what do we need to succeed? What do we need to succeed? And what are the challenges ahead I mean, in this particular context as well, we have now, I mean, with this crisis, the recovery, etc. What are the challenges we have ahead of us to make this initiative a success? David.
Well, thank you so much indeed, Serge. So I think that's a great question. Now, as we mentioned earlier, the IMF and its technical assistance facility is an instrument of the Coalition for a Global Financial Ecosystem that works for cities and local governments. And before answering your direct question, I'll just say that this is critical because, as we know, for example, it's too late to limit global warming to within 1.5 degrees. Adaptation is key. The world's challenges really require local investment. And it's very clear that the cities have the answers as the units of measurement, the units of action, the units of investment. Cities and local governments, sometimes more than countries, is where the action is if we want to fix some of the problems of the world. But the financing is organized either in large private sector entities or in local government. Sorry, or in national government. So we have financing in national governments and in big business, but we have cities and local governments where the action is in order to literally save the planet and improve people's lives. So that is the dilemma that we face. And the IMF and the coalition, the Malaga Coalition for a Financial Ecosystem that works for cities and local governments, is about creating this financial ecosystem that can make this change. Just some figures show how critical it is. You know, in the past, during industrialization phases, up to 40% of GDP was invested in infrastructure as places were urbanizing. It took Paris 100 years to go from 500,000 people to 1 million people. Now you are having cities going from 500,000 people to 1 million people in 15 years, and you're having much less than 40% investment in urban infrastructure. So they're growing cities with low productivity, and this is creating an enormous problem for the world. We need to fix it. How to make it happen, how to change the ecosystem. It's not only about, there are lots of projects, there's not enough finance, we need to do some matchmaking to bring the projects to the finance. You often hear that. It's much more complicated than that, because the finance as it currently sits needs projects to be very profitable. And if they're very profitable, they're often not resilient. We've all seen cities that have these beautiful 5-star shopping malls in them. They were bankable investments, but yet next to the 5-star shopping mall, the rest of the city is not really moving forward. So it's not only about linking projects with finance, it's getting finance that is, the cost of capital is right, the tenor, the length of the funding is right, the blend of the funding is right, and it's a city-owned initiative, and the availability of capital is right. And quite often the regulatory environment is not making this capital available. So all of these pieces of the jigsaw need to be put into place. And I think we've already heard in this meeting some of the answers. So the AFD work, and we're working very closely with Frédéric and his colleagues on kind of non-sovereign guarantees. So one of the problems is that governments don't like local governments to borrow or access capital markets because it limits the central government, the country's own credit rating, they believe. So if there can be a non-sovereign guarantor, that helps a lot. So that's one of the ways that we're working with AFD. Belt and Road was mentioned. Again, if there can be a blend of concessional or semi-concessional finance coming in, that is also very helpful. And the Belt and Road initiative can help on that. But of course, it must be city-owned and city-led. This is about city-owned, city-led local government projects. So that is a fundamental element to what we are talking about. And I think we can have a very interesting conversation as to how that fits in with the Belt and Road and with other regional initiatives. We're working on the water basin management in West Africa, in Southern Africa, in the SADC region. That's another area where these things can work. So How will the IMIF be part of this? So yes, the Meridiam is a private asset manager. We are working with them. We as UNCDF launched the request for proposals. They answered it. They won a public competition. And now we are in the final stages of the legal negotiations, and also they are in the final stage of capitalizing the fund. So we can't answer any of the detailed questions until the prospectus comes out. So that's a legal issue, and I'm sure you understand that. But the principle is that this will be a path-breaking fund, an ice-breaking fund. So it's not going to invest in the 46th municipal bond in Ghana, but it might invest in the first, second, and third municipal bond in Ghana to get that process moving. And it's also going to be path-breaking, not only in terms of financial instruments, but in terms of business models. So some of the cities that are coming forward, we're looking at the street lighting, the industrial parks, the rapid transport, tramways, housing, energy, waste to energy. There's an investment in Cambodia, which is about waste to energy in a very innovative way. These are models which, once they work and we can show that they can work, can then be translated elsewhere. We can take that from Cambodia to Sierra Leone. I've just finished a podcast series that'll come out interviewing 10 mayors about their projects. Some of them have spoken today, others not. How to get this information circulating about the ways that the IMIF can invest. This will be critical. So it'll be path-breaking in terms of models, business models, investment models, path-breaking in terms of financial instruments, like a bond or types of blended finance, types of grant loan mix, and also path-breaking in terms of policy, because really we need to see the global financial ecosystem include cities and local governments as a fundamental pillar of it. Currently, the two pillars is national sovereign finance, with monopoly of taxation, sovereign guarantees, etc., cheap access to the capital markets. Benin can borrow more cheaply from the capital markets than Cotonou, the capital of Benin. And yet Cotonou needs to do the investment for Benin to become resilient. But Cotonou can't get the money, Benin as a country can. This needs to change. The other big pillar, of course, of global finance is the large private sector institutions, including pension funds. What's the point of saving for a pension if the world will not be there when you retire? So we need to get the asset allocation of pension funds into municipal finance. This is the policy agenda that we are working with UCLG on and FMDV in the Malaga Coalition, and the IMIF is a vehicle for this. And so thank you very much, Serge. And I'm seeing your moderation well moderated. And
thank you so much, David. I know that you're so convinced and so enthusiastic about this fund. So I have to cut you. Sorry for that. Jean-François, same questions. We need to succeed. What are the conditions for that?
Thank you very much, Serge, and hi everyone. Same question. I think the answer will be quite similar because I totally share what David just said about the position of the municipal markets and how IMIF intends to do that. What I like to say this time is that there is a market failure on the local finance market. Because on one side, we cannot find a mayor who doesn't have a dozen of projects to finance. This doesn't exist. On the other side, many donors and investors are creating credit lines or investment opportunities to invest into cities, but both supply and demand side are not matching. There is no connecting between the two, despite the projects and the resources. So we see that it's not a problem of projects, it's not a problem of resources, but we need to have new mindset in order to engage and mobilize the ecosystem and be transformative and change the culture of understanding the municipal finance. Somebody was saying that there is a problem of bankability. But we cannot ask mayors to be bankable. But we need to shift the mind to go through projects that are being investable, which can match the condition of the investors, but also the condition of public local projects, which are not meant to be bankable for the services or infrastructures. So that's what IMIF is trying to do. It's to mobilize the ecosystem of stakeholders from the project leaders, cities, region, local governments, the DFIs, the UN agencies, and private investors in order to work together to develop pipelines of projects and merging forces through project preparation and investment. And this work of mobilizing the ecosystem will create a culture of understanding and a culture of working together. And I think this will allow also to be transformative in the long term, because in the end, the intention of IMIF is not just to support individual projects, but through those projects is to create long-term conditions to develop municipal finance markets in order to be impactful for other cities and other regions that will then could benefit from these reinforced local finance market. So I hope that in the end, IMIF will succeed in that, in the ultimate goal. It's not, again, to finance 15 projects. It's to try to solve some issues. And like David was saying, to say that the intention is not to contribute to the 20th bond in Uganda, but really to be in the front and to move the lines in some particular aspect of local finance in order to be to achieve in the end the objective of the Agenda 2030 and the Paris Agreement. But this, just to answer the question from Mr. Mayor, for me the critical challenge is that we cannot do it alone. It's not UCLG, UNCDF, and FMDV and Meridiam who will solve the problem. We need to get as much partner on board in order that everybody contributes to that, put efforts, and that together we will succeed in doing that. So I'm very happy also to see that other networks are coming on board, like ICLEI, that AFD and USAID express interest on that. And this, I think, it's the main challenge. It's really to bring everybody on board, to try to be aligned on the objectives, and then in the end to be able to create long-term conditions for better financing local governments. Thank you, Serge.
Merci. Merci, Jean-François. Thank you, Jean-François. Just have a quick question in the chat. I think it's an important question. So I would like to ask, I mean, in 1 minute, David, if you can ask this question. Investment in soft infrastructure, investment in institutions to manage infrastructure, how the fund is going to deal with that. I mean, so because we're talking about investing in infrastructure, how do we manage to also work on, as you say, the ecosystem that allows us and allows city to have access to these private finance? So just in a few words. David.
Thank you so much indeed. Great questions. So as Jaffa mentioned in the presentation, there is tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 2 is the privately managed fund, which will only invest in things that generate a revenue for the shareholders of the fund, which will include development banks and private sector. Now, tier 1 is the technical assistance and the capacity support, and which will invest in the soft side of things. And that is already funded. The International Municipal Investment Fund Technical Assistance Facility exists. It's up and running. Jaffa is its manager. So we have people and money to do some of that. So please get in touch. And secondly, we have the coalition of which everybody here, and many of you have been at the first and second, and next year we hope to have a third Malaga conference for this global financial ecosystem that works for cities and local governments. And I think that's where we need really to work together in in an increasingly connected way as this ecosystem to support cities along the lines that Frederick, Kevin have mentioned earlier on today.
Serge, I think you're on mute.
I never know when it's on mute or not. Sorry for that. So we're coming to an end. 5 minutes left before we close the session. I would like to thank you all, mayors, speakers, and for very insightful, and I think it was a very interesting session, providing inputs and providing not only I mean, compliments, as I said, but food for thought also, I mean, and how we should proceed with this fund. I would like to, if Emilia is ready, I mean, just to ask her a few concluding remarks. So you've heard mayors, you've heard experts, you've heard donors, agencies, cooperation agencies. What are your takeaways from this, and what are the challenges for our institution, UCLG? I mean, in moving forward with this fund, Emilia.
Well, thank you very much, Serge. I think the session has really met its objective, which was to be very informative and to show the ideas behind this initiative. I also think it is very important to realize that UCLG does not want this type of funds to be needed. These type of funds are not our objectives. And I see David nodding, Kevin, funds. I mean, this is not what we want because it doesn't come anywhere near what we need. I mean, but what we're trying to do with this kind of initiative is to show the potential of those intermediary cities and those less attractive projects to succeed, and how much they could open pathways to actually attract big investment and to put local service provision in the radar of development plans. Both in the global south and the global north. I think nowadays with this pandemic going on and the changes that we're going to see in the world, this is even more important than ever before, because local service provision continues to be an afterthought. Because when we talk about urban world and urban infrastructure, we usually only talk about the hard, big infrastructure, but there is much more that needs to be funded. So from our perspective, this is very much part and parcel of the work of that coalition, of UCLG's strategy on localizing local finance. We need to actually make sure that governments look at financing of local governments and regional governments in a different way. They need to understand that they are very much part and parcel of the success of any development plan they have. And that is true in the global north and the global south. So from our perspective, we will continue to push for improving the local finance engineering capacities. We will need to continue advocating for long-term substantive investment. We will need to continue advocating for changes of the legislative framework. Look, it's obsolete, it's not working, and we are going to start noticing this very soon. If we are successful with this fund and with some other funds that are being set up with sister organizations around green recovery, etc., I'm delighted Clay is here, but also some of the initiatives that are promoted by GECOM, by C40, etc., where we also participate. If we are successful in demonstrating how powerful that is, then and how much local action can do, member states will need to actually also change the way that they finance their cities. And at the end of the day, that change, triggering that change, is also part of the work that we want to do through here. I have personal frustration, and I think that it's just going too slowly. And I know mayors have been very positive and kind here today, but I know they are not that positive and kind when they talk to me and others. Yes, Mayor Sefiani said it, no, it's not going as fast as we need it. We need to go faster. And there is also a shift that development agencies will need to help us trigger, and the work of Cities Alliance in this sense, and of course, USAID as part of it, and the French development agencies are very critical. We need to make sure that there is enhanced trust in what intermediary cities can do, what the public sector can do. That is a change in conversation that is very relevant. So my hope is that we can continue this advocacy shift, this change of policy within the context of the alliance, that we also find the means, and this is important, to strengthen our capacity to provide support, the technical support for all those cities that are lining up and that do not have the capacities. And I would say the sooner the better, but for the time being, I think, colleagues, mission accomplished, but not satisfied yet. We will keep at it. Thank you very much for your partnership, UNCDF, and thank you very much, FMDB. Who, as you know, FMDB is one of our consultation mechanisms, part and parcel of the UCLG family. We very much look forward to continue working with you. Thank you all. This is it, Serge. Just thank you to join us here at Council. It is relevant to have these discussions in the context of the Council meetings. And tomorrow we will be facing our Executive Bureau, and on Friday the World Council. Thank you very much. We will make sure your messages reach the leadership of UCLG. Thank you very much. Bye.